topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. So, as a proponent of mindfulness, I want to share what happened today. So what we will do is we will send out the link to our guest, and looks like a wrong link was sent out to our guest. And here we are sitting on one link, and on another link, our guest is sitting. So as we are going through the technical merging, it was important to keep that presence of mind. Otherwise, you cannot come up with different solutions. So super important. It was good because it's good to be challenged by life, because that's when you know that the skill sets that you have, you can implement it or not. So that said, folks, excited to be here with you. And for those of you who have got our books, thank you, because of your help, we have been able to help our 100th entrepreneur across the globe. If you've not got our books, Get Expert to Influencer, doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're a business leader, professional, or an entrepreneur, it will help you become the influencer who impacts. And I'm sure that most of you want to impact other people. And then secondly, Entrepreneur's Garden can help you increase your business multifold and build relationships with different things in your life and get a solid founding. So get your copies today and help us out, help others, and help yourself. And I also highly encourage you to spend 1 hour of your time every month. And if you do it every week, it would thrill me, because y'all share stories. And I want to share a story of how one of our listeners helped somebody out. So what I want to share is that one of our listeners had one of her neighbors go through some physical difficulty, and her neighbor couldn't drive. So what she did was she created a chart and shared it with her neighbor, when she was available, and got groceries for her neighbor, folks, while she was out getting groceries for herself. So it didn't take much time out of her own time. And yet that kindness served a long way to somebody else. And I want to share that our listener is Nadine. Nadine, kudos to you. We want to give you a shout out for sharing your kindness story with us. And folks, if you are doing it, please share your kindness stories and we'll be sharing them out over here. So thank you, Nadine. Keep on doing the good work. Let's invite our guest, Dr. Annie White. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And thank you for your patience. With technology, things happen. So
things happen. Exactly. If that's the worst thing that happens today, we're pretty lucky.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because this is a live show and we go live at a certain time, even though it may be a small challenge, it can become big in that moment and cause some stress. I was stressed, not fully stressed. And yet it's bringing in those different things that we will be talking about. So before we jump into all of that, let's go back to your childhood or when you were a youth. Do you recall a moment that stands out for you even today?
In um in regard to who I am, the moment that stands out for me is I think I was 1.5, and my mom wanted to tie my shoes for me. And I said, "Me do it." And it was my first sentence. And that is pretty much sums up who I am. I very stubborn. And also, I've always wanted to forge my own path. I've always wanted to do it myself and figure it out.
Hmm. So, question for you. Do you still remember that? Or was it something that your mom told you?
I think it's both. It's sort of hard when that was like 50 years ago, right? So it's hard to say, "Oh gosh, that was an actual cognizant memory or it was a told memory." It's
Hmm.
both of those for me at this point.
Oh, I love it. Me do it.
Me do it.
as, as young as you were, you
Yeah, I made
knew
her call me Peter Pan for about 3 years too. So there's that.
that. And that's the reason we start out with this question, because sometimes it can bring a lovely smile. And as you grew up, did you see, as you call, some people may call it stubbornness, I would call it independent, strong willed. How did that play out when you were a child?
Well, I think it made me very difficult to parent because I um, I I did do things my way, and I follow rules when I agree with them. And it's always been that way my entire life. So if people have told me, "Annie, you can do this or you can't do that," I'd say, "Why?" And why are all these people doing things a certain way? And do I agree with it? And if I do, I'll go along with it. But if I don't, I just won't. Even in high school, and you get into these groups of girls, and I went to an all girls school, and people weren't always nice to other people.
Hmm.
And I didn't go along with it. Even if, like one of the girls said, "Annie, we're, not be nice to her today or we're whatever." I just I was like, "Well, that's stupid and that'll make her feel bad." And we're not doing it. So I've always questioned and
Hmm.
continue to.
Hmm. And that's important because it's, and I'm not saying that people need to go against the rules or anything like that. It's important to question that, why are we doing what we are doing? And that's the place from where innovation and creativity and that curiosity helps us in so many different ways. So being curious is such a beautiful and an important skill set, or a character trait or personality trait, whatever we want to call it, to have. So as you grew up, where did your interest take you?
Well, I wanted to be Barbara Streisand, really. So I loved to sing. I trained in opera forever, but I wouldn't I wouldn't practice like I should practice to be an opera singer because singing opera is sort of like the singing Olympics, isn't it? And so I I wouldn't practice that much, so I didn't get good enough. But I sang in bands and I did all of that kind of thing. And with my whole me do it attitude, I always had to work for myself. So I found jobs where I would be my own boss, and I was always my own boss. And I found myself in the mortgage business in Chicago, and I became the number one mortgage broker in Illinois. And I didn't love it. I was just like, is this all there is? It's just not for me. And so I dropped everything and I moved to San Francisco. And I worked for a nonprofit, and we were helping girls' schools in India. And I loved the idea of it. And they wanted me to run it for them. And I didn't like the idea of constantly fundraising. It just wasn't me. And it wasn't I loved the concept. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I took an overview class in Chinese medicine and I fell in love. I mean, it was spiritual, it was physical, it was mental, it combined all of it. It was natural. And I signed up for a 4-year master's degree in San Francisco and then went on to do a 2-year doctorate on top of it.
Mm.
So that's sort of a short story of trajectory.
Fascinating. You talked about opera music, and I remember going to a few operas. I used to love, like, that was something which was very interesting. While I was in high school, one of my teachers introduced me to it. And it's amazing, like, sometimes what you have been exposed to in your teenage years, you can carry it throughout. And it still remembers, like, when you're talking about opera music, seeing Giselle, like, that had touched me really, really a lot. So let's just kind of go back a little bit. And here you were, you wanted to be next Barbara Streisand. And so what was it that stopped you from practicing?
I think I was having too much fun in
Mm,
in school, and especially when I got to college. It was like I had to go to these little practice rooms, and all my friends were doing other things. And so my practices got shorter and shorter and shorter.
mhm.
And I think that that's probably what thwarted it. And I think I liked the idea of it and I loved singing and it was always really easy for me, but I don't know that that was my absolute passion reason for being on this earth because I didn't have this fire that I absolutely had to do this.
Hmm. And the reason I brought this question up is because so many times stress originates when we're doing things that we don't want to do and we're not passionate about. So that's a great statement that you made there, that there was no fire that was lighting up your soul. So now you talked about that, you were number one broker as well, like making money, and
Yeah.
yet you didn't stay there.
I didn't stay there. I mean, I always wanted to help people. Even when I wanted to be Barbara Streisand, it's because I wanted to be famous and help the poor people. But
Hmm.
um you can't want to be a singer because you want to be famous. You have to want to be singer because you want to be a singer, right? And you
Hmm.
have to be willing to live in vans and you have to be willing to tour go through all of that process and do what it takes to get where you need to go. It's not like 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. And with the mortgage business, it was fun for a while, but then it wasn't feeding my soul like we're talking about. And I've
Hmm.
been on this quest to feed my soul and to really figure out what is aligned for me. Why am I here? What am I doing here? And perhaps I think about it too much, but that I knew wasn't feeding my soul. In fact, there was this moment where this is when it hit me. My doctor said, "Hey, we really think you might have breast cancer and we want to, do the biopsy and that sort of thing." And my first thought, Divya, was, "Oh, thank God I can quit my job."
Oh.
Oh, I was like, "Wait, did you just listen to yourself? You no more. This is no more."
Hmm.
So then I made a huge switch.
Well, I hope you didn't have to go through it.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I didn't. It turned out that it wasn't. And the beauty of that situation was that I got that message.
Hmm. You are absolutely right, because there was something similar that I went through, but blessings by, nature's blessings, didn't have to go through anything. And it is such a tumultuous time, and my prayers and blessings for each and every person who may be going through any illness, and, you know, our positive vibes and healing blessings to you, that you get better. And health, like, health is so important and we don't realize it. So that brings us back to, like, you said no more. And when you said that no more, what was that turning point and what went through your mind?
I knew at that moment that I had to make a huge change. And I kept saying, and I don't like this phrase anymore, but I'll tell you what it was because it was back then. I kept saying, I want to feed my soul and not my pocketbook. But now I don't think that those things have to be separate. I think that, you can do what you love and also, do well by doing good.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with money or anything like that. But back then, that's why pretty much I was doing that job. I mean, I was helping my clients, but I don't know if they really appreciated it on the level that I wanted to serve, basically.
Hmm. I like that. On the level I wanted to serve. And that again brings us back to that it is that service, because when you're helping others and creating an impact, it just brings in such a joy and fulfillment, and that in life that it's beyond words. You got to experience it yourself to go through it. And yes, we can describe the language, we can use the words, we can use the language to describe the experience, but it's nothing like but what's experiencing. So now going towards that, like, you made the connection, you connected the dots, you went through a strenuous training, you talked about 4 and 6 years of training. What would you say that you learned during those years? Because a lot of people want, and you said, 0 to 200, like, oh, go for like, a, a weekend training and you got the certificate and you have this. A lot of people shy away from putting in the work. So, what would you tell our audience that you put in the time for? What did you get out of it?
It's a great question. The training was very rigorous, and I tell everyone who is thinking about going into Chinese medicine and probably any medicine, they try to kill you, and if they don't, they let you practice. So it was incredibly rigorous, and I'm a science nerd, and I absolutely loved it. And I was learning this medicine that's thousands of years old. So there was a lot to learn. And a lot of these, like if you're going to become a naturopath, that's only a 4-year program, but you can't get Chinese medicine into just a 4-year program. It has to be 6. And, we still keep learning, obviously, as we go. And I guess what I got one of the things that I got out of that program was the need for balance and the need to take care of yourself so that the symptoms don't come up.
Mm,
Chinese doctors used to only get paid when their patients were well, not when they
mm.
got sick. So it really is a wellness based system, which is really interesting.
That is
Um,
interesting.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's striking me is that you mentioned about two things is learning, because as a lifelong learner, learning never stops for me. And then you talked about the wellness system. I'm sure it's not like that now. This was probably in the olden days.
That's right.
Okay. So you learned, and I know that you have been through some of your own journey as well. So tell us, like, how did you take this and apply it to first to your personal life, and then we can come and discuss like about how there are other strategies to help our audience.
Well, what was happening was patients were coming into my office, and so much of their so many of their health issues were rooted in stress or
Mhm.
exacerbated by stress. And I knew that if I didn't solve their stress and anxiety, they would never be truly happy or healthy. So my training taught me to get to the root cause of issues. Let's solve that root cause. And so I did a deep dive into the science of the brain because that's the root cause of stress. It's not actually that traffic jam or those bills or that mother-in-law on your last nerve. It's your reactions to those things. And that depends on how your mind is actually wired. So once I figured out that every thought, action, and emotion strengthens those corresponding parts of our brain, it made a lot of sense to me that stressful thoughts will then strengthen the stressful circuits in your mind. They're called neural circuits. and its connections in your mind. And negative and positive have different connections in the mind based on studies. So they're separate. So when you're thinking negative thoughts, you're strengthening the negative parts of your mind. And when you're thinking the positive thoughts, you're strengthening the positive parts of your mind. So I developed a whole method to strengthen those calm and positive parts of your mind based on neuroscience, based on that science of neuroplasticity. And I was using it,
Mhm.
and it was for my patients. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to write a book. It was for my patients. There wasn't any step-by-step method out there. So I designed it, but I would toss it out to people and say, okay, try this or try this or try this, different tools. It wasn't like we would sit down and I would say, okay, we're going to work on your neuroplasticity. No, I would just give them these tools and they worked. They really loved the tools, but I didn't have time to do anything else with them because I was running a very busy practice.
Mhm. So you also have mentioned that you went through a difficult time and you used it yourself. So can you describe that?
Yep. And we're here right now. Perfect. So then I moved and I went through this very difficult 2 years where um, my father got very, very sick and he died. And then I actually lost my practice in California that I had been
Mm.
building for over 12 years. And if you've ever built your own business, it's just heartbreaking. Um, and there were a lot of other things. Oh, we moved into a house with mold. It was a lot of things that just kept coming and coming and coming. And the crazy part, Divya, is that I wasn't using my tools. And sorry, I got to a point where I was on the living room floor and my husband had walked out because all of that stress and all of my negativity had basically wired my mind to the point where I was irritable and anxious and not nice. I just wasn't myself anymore. And he said, Annie, I just can't do this anymore. And he left and I'm on the floor thinking, oh my God,
I'm so sorry.
thank you. I can't, I mean, I cry about this just because I just know what it's like to be there. And
Mhm.
I didn't use my tools. And I finally realized, oh my gosh, I do have something I can try. I can try to use this. And so I did. And it helped me to explain to him what was going on with me and why I was like this and how I was going to try to fix it. Because in any relationship when things go wrong, I think, coming to the table and say, okay, here's what I did and here's what I brought to the table to make these things go wrong and here's how I'm trying to remedy it. And so I did. I used my tools and I was diligent about it. I think I used them for about 15 minutes twice a day. And the first couple weeks I didn't see much change. It takes time. But after that, I did start seeing a change. And after about 6 weeks, I saw a huge change and I thought, oh my God, this helped me so much. I never want anybody to have to go through this. And I want to get these tools into the hands of as many people as I can for the least expensive. So I wrote the book, and that's how that came about.
So, as our audience is going through and are there with us, how can they dramatically lower their stress levels?
What I say is I start with 3 minutes twice a day. So what you're doing is you're strengthening the calm and happy parts of your mind, which is absolutely possible. I took all of the scientifically proven ways to strengthen those parts of your mind and I combined them into tools you can use every day. I'm more than happy to share, a couple on today if you want that. But we
That
start
would be great.
of course. We start with 3 minutes twice a day. You work up over 6 weeks to 8 minutes twice a day. If you really want to be a go getter, you can do more time. It's basically like working out your body. It's like, okay, Annie, I want to build my biceps. Oh, okay. Well, these exercises are proven to build your biceps. So if you do that consistently, because you have to be consistent with these things, nature needs consistency, then it will change. But what happens is once you've built those parts of your brain to be stronger than the stress and the negative parts, your reactions are more balanced. You can respond in a in a good, nice way instead of chopping the head off, in my case, my husband, or a random customer service rep. I could tell you a lot of stories that are quite embarrassing for me, frankly, but I got to that point. I wasn't myself. So I get it. There was one point anyway, also that I even considered not being here anymore, not being on this earth anymore. So listen,
Oh,
I get it. And this really, really helped me. So let me think. I just want to give you like some really a couple. So let's say start here. And this is where I start with people in the book. Set 3 minutes twice a day. You can do a timer on your phone. I want you to find pictures that make you feel, let's just pick like joyful or happy or peaceful, whatever. Like nature pictures are proven to wire those calm um, circuits in your brain. Okay. So you could go nature, find them in your phone or find them online. You can Google and you can say pictures of nature, pictures of ocean, pictures of mountains, pictures of waterfalls. You get what I'm saying. Okay. And then you group these pictures into either an album or something that you can flip through for 3 minutes. And as you flip through these pictures, really cultivate that feeling, right? Because that's going to further strengthen those parts of the brain. And that's a really good exercise. I do tell people if you're going into your phone or into your own photo albums, make sure it doesn't trigger any negativity. For instance, I had a patient one time and her husband told her he wanted a divorce when they were hiking. And she said, "Oh, I should be over that. That was 5 years ago." But when she saw hiking trails, that would come into her mind. And I said, "Listen, this is not a judgment thing. Judgment and shoulds are not your friend in this situation. Honor yourself. And if anything triggers negativity, it's out for now because it will just stimulate those negative and stress past, won't it? So stick with the calm, stick with the happy as long as you can. And it's 3 minutes twice a day.
mm-hmm.
I mean,
Fantastic.
we can get more advanced with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We can get more advanced with that tool, but that's just a very simple way to start.
Absolutely. And you also talk about a breathing exercise that can
Mm.
stop the stress in its tracks.
You want the fun version or the serious version?
Let's do both.
Okay. It's the same, but it's just a way to remember it. Okay, so it has 3 steps. First step, you start with your hand on your chest, left hand on your chest, and you say to yourself, "I'm safe. I'm not in a life-threatening situation. I'm safe. I'm not in a life-threatening situation." And the reason that we say that is because the mind can't fight against that. If you are in a life-threatening situation, I highly recommend you do not do this exercise. You run. So, I am safe. I'm not in a life-threatening situation. Second step, you move that hand down to your lower belly. And as you breathe in, you feel that lower belly go out toward the opposite wall. I'm safe. I'm not in a life-threatening situation. Third step, take your right index finger and cover your right nostril. As you do this exercise, you breathe in and out only through your left nostril. Studies have shown that activates your calm or parasympathetic nervous system and it calms you down faster. So I call it the relax right tool, or pick your nose the right way, because it sort of looks like you're picking your nose and it's the right side. It's always the right side that you cover.
Right, which kind of makes sense because, your left side is the prefrontal cortex or your logical brain. And if you're activating it, you're bringing in those circuits in action. So yeah, I like that's the fun stuff. So we have talked about, a couple of exercises. And can you share, if there is some morning routine, some other things people can include in the
Here's what I
day-to-day routine?
Yeah, let's do this morning routine. You know how when you get really, really stressed, you wake up in the morning and it's sort of like you roll through the events that are going to happen in your day, but you're seeing worst case scenarios because you're stressed out. And that just makes you more stressed. Let's try this. I love timers. Let's set a timer. And in the beginning, let's just go 3 minutes. And I want you to sit there and I want you to envision your day going absolute best case scenario. And when you get good at this, I want you to imagine your day going absolutely rock star. So you can imagine anything you want coming up that day, even traffic. It's like, okay, I'm going through traffic. Traffic is smooth. Now we can superpower it and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So now not only are we doing best possible self projections, we're doing some visualization, but we are also adding gratitude on top of that. And I love triple thanks. Triple thank yous are very powerful. So you say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Traffic is easy for me today, and I arrive everywhere on time. Thank you, thank you, thank you that my relationships are connected and strong and happy today. Thank you, thank you, thank you that I rock that sales presentation and, you know, I get XYZ sale. Whatever you want to say that's coming up in that day. If you have a hard conversation with someone, thank you, thank you, thank you that my conversation with Tony goes amazingly well and we are closer than ever afterward. But you roll through that and you see the best case scenario. And what that does is it sets your brain up on those right tracks from the start of the day, and it also strengthens them, and it calms you down and it feels good. So it's a
Mhm.
great way to start every single day. And people have said that once you visualize things, then your subconscious gets into action about making it happen.
Mhm. So what I'm hearing is that a prevention, I think it was an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So what you're saying is like,
Love
put
it.
in strategies and some routine habits in your life that you're doing consistently so that you're strengthening your calm side of your brain. And while you're doing that, then as things will come through, because life is all about change, the change is certain, stress is certain. It's how you react to it that's what's going to make the world of difference.
Yes. And this changes your reactions
Hmm.
because your brain, so the brain loves the path of least resistance. So if you have more networks and pathways that are wired towards stress and negativity, bam, it's going to go straight there. You're going to go straight to those worst case scenarios. But if you're wired for more calm and if you're wired for more positivity, those sides have a fighting chance and you can be more creative in those situations. You don't necessarily go directly to that worst case scenario.
Hmm. Very powerful. So you have shared all of this and you have written your book. So tell us a little bit about your book.
The book is a step-by-step process. So I use some of these tools in the book and many, many more. So I give a 6-week step-by-step method. And then at the end of it, I combine all the tools. So I want people to use the tools individually at first to see how they work for you. You don't have to use all of the tools at the end of it. You're going to have your favorites. And personally, I use some tools at some times and other tools at other times, just depending on what I feel. So I say do 3 minutes twice a day. And then each week you build on that. You end with 8 minutes twice a day. And I say stay with 8 minutes twice a day until you feel like you're at the spot where you want to be, where you're that calm and happy and balanced person. We all know those people. I always thought, "Oh my god, how is this person like that? Did they just have, a childhood with like clouds and some sort of perfect situation which obviously doesn't exist." But this actually can train your mind back to that spot where things are happy, things are calm again. So I give the science behind all of it. I tell a bit of my story because a lot of times people can see themselves. It's like, oh, okay, this has been going on. I can see how that can affect my brain now. Then I give the science. Then I talk about how to make it a habit. And then I give the step by step method. And then I say how to combine it and how to use it going forward.
Well, fantastic. So as we have talked about the book, where can people connect with you?
They can connect. My website is Dr. AnnieWhite.com. The book they can get on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and iBooks and Audible. And if your bookstore doesn't have it, ask them to get it for you. Um, So those are the best ways to find the book and to find me.
Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic. So now some of our listeners may be talking about that you have shared any lot of some great affirmations. If they want to create their own affirmations, how can they go about it?
Okay. I do use affirmations in the book too, so I like this. You know what I like with affirmations, honestly, Divya, is I like throwing in the triple thank you, because that the affirmation is telling your subconscious mind that this is going to happen. I like it to be in the past tense, that it already happened. So, for instance, let's say I wanted to do an affirmation about our interview today, and maybe I was a little worried about it. I was like, oh, what if I mess it up? What if I don't give the information we need? All those sort of things, because we're human and we roll through worst case scenarios. But what if instead I did an affirmation like this? Thank you that I rocked this interview. Thank you that I rocked this interview. So put that affirmation in that present tense, throw the triple thanks on it because it's so powerful, and then make it a strong affirmation that is your best case scenario.
Mm-hmm. So curious, what is it about triple? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's a good question. In working with patients over all of these years, the way that I found the triple thanks being so effective is with my fertility patients. I love fertility patients because they will do what I say. So they would do the triple thanks, and it's so powerful that, I mean, people got pregnant after 10 rounds of IUI, after 4 rounds of IVF. And yes, I was doing acupuncture and Chinese medicine too, but so many of them attributed it also to this triple thanks affirmation statement. Thank you for my happy, healthy baby. Thank you for my happy, healthy baby. Right? I love that one for fertility. It really works. So that's how I found the triple thanks.
That is so interesting because now this is, I don't know if it's a coincidence or what it is. I, especially whenever if I'm doing workshops or I'm in a moment where I'm fully grateful, I'm always saying it like 3 times. And that's what made me curious as to where did that come from.
Yeah, it's the most powerful. And now, I mean, you agree, and you're just doing it intuitively too, you know?
So very powerful. So now as we are wrapping up our show, can you give away maybe, a couple of tips that people can take away with them and implement them straight away?
I would say every time you start to feel your breathing get shorter, quicker, closer together, you're going into that stress mode. So if in those moments you will use my pick your nose the right way breathing technique, even in traffic. Somebody said to me one time, well, what if people see me and they actually think I'm picking my nose? I said, who cares? Are you ever going to see that person again? They're just in the other car. Who cares? So that will really help to calm you down faster in those moments. So that's a really good one. And use the triple thanks statement as often as possible.
Hmm. Definitely. Those are some powerful techniques. And thank you for joining us and sharing so freely and especially being so vulnerable. I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. You made it a safe, good space. So thank you so much. And I love your show. It's fabulous. Strengthening the calm and happy pathways every time we listen to your show. I love it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Annie. I appreciate that. And thank you, audience. Because without you, the show would not be possible. And as you'll see, it's okay to share that you can get stressed because that's life. And our first reaction is to get stressed. It's how we deal with it and how we cope through it and then put into place that will allow you to be happy and calm even in the presence of stress. So I would love for you guys to be happy and live the lifestyle that y'all deserve. And please reach out to us how we can help you. How can we support you to create an impact as well as live a life that's meaningful, fulfilling, and joyful? And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. And folks, I'll see you. Be well until next time. Take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.